What's going on, guys? Welcome to my channel. I'm John, the video guy. I hope you're having a great day. In this After Effects tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at motion tracking. Now, if you're new to motion tracking, this tutorial is going to be great for you because I'm going to go over all the fundamentals you need to know to motion track pretty much anything. This covers a wide variety, whether you're trying to track motion, just something going from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen, and you want to stick something to it, and it follows it. This will be great for you, as well as rotation as well, because in this tutorial, as you can see here, I have a sign inside Adobe After Effects, and what we're going to do is kind of paste text on this so it follows this animation. But before we get started, guys, as always, feel free to hit the like button. It really helps my channel out. And with that, let's dive into today's video tutorial. All right, so for sake of sanity and for rendering time, we'll trim this so that we're only in a 2-second sequence. So this will be a 2-second animation. So we basically got the sign, and I got the sign from Digital Juice. If you are interested in Digital Juice, I'll link a link to it down below. It's a pretty good deal. It's like $300, get a bunch of assets and stuff. So feel free to add it to your pack. But in this tutorial here, I got this clip from Digital Juice, and what we're going to do is create a text layer and then animate it so that it basically sticks onto this sign. So I'm going to grab my text layer and we'll just type in text. And you can do this with anything, if you have an image and you want to stick it to something as well. This pretty much works for any type of motion tracking thing. So all right, so we got our text layer and we want it to follow that. So what we'll need to do first is actually create a null object. And this null object, what it's going to do is basically contain the tracking information of the background layer and basically hold the data points that we're going to set up here in a few minutes. And we'll rename this null object tracking data. And the next part we're going to do is actually go into this background layer and track the motion. So you'll double click on the layer in the composition, and you'll notice that we're inside the layer now. And what you'll want to do is go to Window Tracker. And this will bring up the tracking controls. And from this, what you'll want to do is make sure that you click Track Motion. And under here, edit the target to be the tracking data. So that way, when you apply the tracking motion, you'll apply it to that null object that we just created. Click OK. And what you'll notice here is that if we zoom in, there's one tracking point, and what this tracking point is basically this is the area that's going to try to track the motion of this object over time. Now, before we set up this tracking point, it's also important to note you have a few other options down here. In this case of the animation of the sign, it's rotating as well. So if you have something you need to track its rotation, you'll want to make sure you check the rotation check box. And now you'll see that there's 2 tracking points in the composition window here. And what we can do is basically just move these around to different points of the object that's moving. And you basically have 2 opportunities to get down the motion of the object. So in this case, I'm going to move these kind of like one's going to be near the center and one's going to be off to the side, kind of picking up the larger area. So for tracking point 1, I'm just going to expand the search area of these boxes. And I'm going to try to find a point that kind of looks high contrasty. And this is key, depending on what you're tracking on your own project. You want to make sure that when you align this X hash, that it's on something that has high contrast with what is around it. So it's going to be tracking this little divot. And this is a pretty easy example. Since this is a piece of wood, you have all these crevices. So basically in this area, it's tracking whatever's in this area. So, you have these little hashes and the marks of the wood here. And here it's tracking that little piece of wood there, or that little engraved mark of the wood. So you want to make sure you set up your tracking point around something that is moving that it can detect over time. Same thing with track point 2. So I'm gonna, maybe this will be a nice high contrast area, and we'll expand the search area boxes as well. That way it kind of picks up what's moving around it. And another note, when you're setting this up on your own, you'll want to make sure that it doesn't exit out of frame, that whatever the tracking points are that you set up, that it doesn't actually leave the composition window. That way After Effects doesn't get confused. If it leaves the frame, it'll have a hard time trying to track the motion. All right, so once you guys have this set up for your own project, what you'll want to do is make sure you go to the very beginning of the timeline. Make sure you're at the very beginning and then click the track forward button. And what this will do is After Effects will now track the motion forward in time, and it will generate a lot of keyframes. And you'll see that as it plays back, the tracking points are moving over time. So if we play this back, that's what we got going on. And if you hit U on your keyboard, you'll see all the tracking data on this layer. So you can see everything is being tracked. And what we'll do next is click the Apply button on the bottom right of the tracker window. And what this will do is apply the tracking data to the X and Y dimensions of the tracking data layer that was the target that we set. And there we go, guys. We have our position and rotation parameters applied to the tracking data null object. And now with this, what we can do is easily, with the text layer or any layer that you want to track to this motion, you'll simply use the parent Pickwick tool to the tracking data null object. And now what we have is this thing tracked. And don't worry, it's off center, but you can easily just keep adjusting these settings until you find something that you like. So you can bring up the rotation and get it centered to the sign here. There we go. Now we got something that we like. No matter what you change to these parameters, it will always track the motion, or it will always be keyframed to the motion of the sign, which is nice. You know, you can keep changing this over time until you get something that you like, but in the long haul, it will always keep to that motion. So there you go, guys. That is how to track text to a moving object inside After Effects using the tracker controls. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and learned something new. If you like these tutorials, feel free to subscribe. I post twice a week. Also, if you guys want to learn more about After Effects, I put together a playlist for you guys. I'll link it right up here. Feel free to go check it out. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.